Look, I gotta ask you something that might completely challenge everything you've ever been taught. Is the endless, everyday grind really the secret to wealth? We've all heard it for years, right? Put your head down, put in the hours, grind harder than everyone else, and success will just automatically follow. But let's be real for a second. If that were the actual formula, the hardest working manual laborers in the world would all be billionaires. And we know for a fact that's just not how the math actually works out.
So, does working longer hours actually make you wealthy? Today, we are completely challenging that whole hamster wheel mentality. The idea of endlessly trading your limited hours for a flat paycheck, it's a trap. It's a paradigm we've been sold for generations. And in this explainer, we're going to break it apart and construct an entirely new mental framework for true financial independence.
Think about it like this. You probably know a high-earning professional, maybe a corporate director making a couple $100,000 a year. Why do so many people in that exact position stay completely broke despite working tirelessly? It's not a lack of effort, it's a lack of strategy. They fall victim to lifestyle inflation, upgrading the car and the house the absolute second that bonus hits. They're paralyzed by the fear of taking calculated risks, so they spend their earnings on depreciating assets instead of wealth-generating engines. And they operate with absolutely zero long-term planning. They are running incredibly fast for sure, but they're literally just sprinting on a treadmill.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our structured roadmap for today. We'll start with the hard work myth, then define true smart work, jump into building high-income skills, explore leverage through time and money, and finally, wrap it up with your 5-year action plan.
Let's get right into Section 1, the hard work myth.
So there's a massive difference here between being a single gear in the machine and being the master engineer who actually designed the whole thing. The old way is working in the business. That means trading your time directly for money, hustling constantly, and just spending whatever cash happens to be left over at the end of the month. The new paradigm? That's about working on the business. It's about building scalable systems and aggressively investing. You have to stop being the muscle and start being the architect.
Which brings us to Section 2, defining true smart work. Now, I know smart work sounds like one of those empty corporate buzzwords, but it's really not about sitting on a beach with a laptop pretending to work while sipping a margarita. It's a highly structured system where you ruthlessly prioritize high-impact activities. Think about the difference between spending 10 agonizing hours answering low-level customer service emails versus spending 1 hyper-focused hour setting up an automated CRM system that handles those emails for you forever. That is a tangible, measurable system of leverage. You're maximizing the output for every single unit of input you provide.
But here's the catch. Executing this requires a massive psychological shift. It's the millionaire mindset. And let's be honest, the friction here is intense. Embracing delayed gratification in a TikTok world that's built on instant dopamine hits, that is incredibly difficult. It requires stretching your timeline to embrace long-term thinking and building the emotional resilience to bounce back after the inevitable, brutal setbacks. True wealth builders are laser-focused on actual value creation, not playing that exhausting game of trying to look wealthy to their neighbors.
So that mindset is your foundation, but it definitely needs an engine. That brings us to Section 3. Building high-income skills.
Why are specialized high-income skills so vital? Because acquiring just 1 or 2 of these acts as a massive multiplier for your core earning potential. We aren't talking about grinding away for a modest 3% yearly corporate raise. We're talking about fundamentally altering your market value. Take someone who truly masters artificial intelligence implementation today. They aren't just getting a promotion. They are effectively doing the work of 5 people, and they command an absolute premium for that efficiency. When you close high-ticket sales or build scalable software, you instantly become irreplaceable.
And having those specialized skills lets you do the absolute most important thing, diversify. When you rely on a single salary, you're essentially just carrying buckets of water from the river to your house. If you get sick or tired or laid off, the water completely stops. But when you diversify into things like digital products, real estate rentals, or intellectual property, you're building a robust pipeline. Sure, it takes heavy, intense work up front to lay those pipes, but once it's built, the water flows on its own 24 hours a day.
This perfectly sets up Section 4, leverage, time and money. Let's uncover the true engine of wealth creation. Time is, without a doubt, your absolute greatest asset. You can always make another book, right? Well, actually, scratch that. You can make $1,000, but you can never, ever buy back a lost minute.
You have to ruthlessly prioritize. Every single hour spent on administrative, busy work is an opportunity cost that's bleeding capital away from your higher-level strategy. You have to protect your time like a bank vault. Outsource the repetitive operational drag and let automation become your best friend.
And when you successfully free up that time, you focus entirely on making your capital work for you. How? By investing consistently and harnessing the magic of compound growth. You must transition from being an employee of your money to acting as the CEO of your money. That means acquiring assets, building businesses, and constantly reinvesting your profits back into the machine rather than just stripping cash out for personal consumption.
What's really interesting here is how clearly we can map out the traps that derail wealth against the disciplined habits that actually guarantee it. It is so incredibly easy to fall into the trap of chasing the latest crypto trend or taking on toxic debt just to maintain this fake image of success. The smart work solution requires supreme discipline. It means ignoring all that noisy hype and relying on deep, objective research. It means prioritizing emergency savings over flashy liabilities, and rather than hoping for some overnight success, you commit entirely to the unglamorous but highly effective long game.
All right, so how do we bring all of this out of the clouds and into your actual daily life? That brings us to Section 5, your 5-year action plan.
Let's ground all this theory in reality with a step-by-step staircase. Year 1 is purely foundational. You are aggressively learning those high-income skills, building a bulletproof emergency fund, and focusing intensely on increasing your primary income. Year 2 is where the momentum really builds. You take that foundation, you start investing regularly, and you launch a side business using those new skills. And then years 3 through 5 are all about velocity, scaling those ventures, reinvesting the profits heavily, and watching your investments accelerate. Anchor yourself to this. Building this takes tremendous patience, unshakable discipline, and incredibly strategic execution.
To wrap things up, don't just blindly work harder. Work smarter, learn continuously, invest consistently, and let your effort build systems that keep creating value long after today's work is done. True wealth is never an accident. It's built over years of consistent, smart decisions rather than random, exhausting bursts of effort. So, armed with this blueprint, here is my final challenge to you. What is the very first high-leverage system you are going to build starting today?